Journey for the Damned. By Rainier Wires. Camberton knew, by the muffled ring, which of his two telephones to pick up. Yet, he hesitated. Who could be calling him at this late hour, on this secret, unlisted wire? Only 6 of his underworld clients knew the number. 2 of these gentlemen of doubtful integrity had just gone out the door. 2 were in Europe, and 1 in prison. The 6th was Burke Horton. But Burke Horton was dead. The muffled bell rang again. Camberton's pudgy hand closed on the cradled instrument and lifted it to his car. He said nothing. He never spoke first on this line. Whoever knew the number of it was expected to know also the code word which had to be uttered before Camberton would respond. Presently the word came, reference room. It was spoken in low, unfamiliar tones. "Who are you?" rasped Camberton. His round, pasty face was an expressionless mask, save for the glint of suspicion in his beady, fat-encircled eyes. "A friend of Horton's," the unknown whispered. "He gave me this number. Said for me to call it when I'm in a jam." "What's your name?" "Smith. John S.M.I." "Very unusual," sneered Camberton. "I've never heard it before. I don't know you." "Wait. You'll know me when you see me." "Why should I see you?" "Because I've got plenty of money for legal advice. Are you alone?" "Yes, I am," drawled Camberton in a bored tone which was belied by the greed in his piggish eyes. "Do you know how to get here?" "I know everything about you that Horton knew. I'll come up the back way like he always did. I'll be there in 10 minutes. Horace L. Camberton, criminal lawyer, any way you say it, put down the telephone, leaned back in his chair and looked again at the newspaper item which he had been reading before the interruption. Early that morning, according to the item, Burke Horton and 2 Confederates were shot to death while looting the First Industrial Bank of Willow Ridge, a southwestern suburb of Chicago. Horton's corpse was identified by the police. The other 2 had apparently been crime recruits. The names were as yet unknown. Camberton's only pang of regret, on reading the item, was in his purse. Horton had been a well-paying client, and, although he had not required legal counsel during the past year, he would have, sooner or later, had he not been mowed down. Perhaps, reflected the attorney, this stranger who had just telephoned would take the place of the dear departed as a source of revenue. However, one couldn't be too sure. It was best to prepare for any kind of a comer. From his library table, Camberton transferred a loaded revolver to his right-hand coat pocket. Then he went into the bedchamber and opened the top drawer of his bureau. From this he took another loaded pistol which he dropped into his left-hand pocket. He waddled impatiently back and forth in the 2 rooms which comprised his suite in the Avon Arms Hotel, a receivership skyscraper towering in Diversey Parkway, cast of Clark Street. It was a nest of shysters, racketeers, and elegantly clad hoodlums. Ordinarily he felt perfectly at home in this environment, in the shadow of the double cross, but tonight he was uneasy. Never before had he been so apprehensive of impending trouble as he was now, while awaiting his nocturnal visitor. Rather than be called upon to open the door and find himself only several inches from his guest, he released the latch, backed across the room and sat down on a straight-backed chair, facing the entrance. Each of his clammy hands was plunged into a pocket, gripping a gun. "Now," he thought, "if I don't like your looks, Mr. Smith, or whoever, or whatever you are, I'll make you back right out again. Nobody's going to pull a fast one on little Horace." The knocking he presently heard was stealthy, almost inaudible. But loud and blustering was his response to it. "Come in," he shouted. The door opened silently. A man whose broad shoulders and muscular arms bulged visibly under his tightly draped jacket stepped in and closed the door behind him. His right hand remained in his pocket, as though he, too, was grasping a weapon. With his other hand he tilted the dip-brimmed, summer felt hat back from his forehead. "Denac," exclaimed Camberton, jumping to his feet. There was no mistaking the name of this visitor. His face was pictured almost daily in the newspapers. He was Anton Tony Denac, widely publicized as America's public enemy number 1. "So you do know me, after all," the stranger grunted, defiantly jutting out his jaw. "And you know there's a reward of 25 grand on my hide." "But, His pocketed hand lifted the coat slightly. Don't think you'll collect it. Besides, I can more than double the ante. If you'll work on my side. Camberton's fat, greedy face broke into an oily grimace which he believed was a cordial smile. Let's be friends, he said, extending a welcoming hand. Denac grinned out of the side of his mouth as he grasped the lawyer's flabby fingers in his own ham-like fist. Okay, now you're my mouthpiece and you'd better be a good one. That's what I need. Part 2 will be continued.